Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of Rotoballer, my co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. Harrison Burton in victory lane at Daytona, his first career win, getting that Wood Brothers number 21 Ford into victory lane and shaking up the playoff picture. We have another driver shaking up the playoff picture. I thought it was going to be Austin Dillon that did it again, but it was Harrison Burton. Becomes the 13th driver to lock himself in. There are 3 spots left to decide at Darlington this weekend. But first, we have to talk about Daytona and the craziness that went on there. Cody Ware came home with a top 5 finish. Parker Retzlaff came home with a top 10 finish, who we both talked about last week, talking about the shitbox parlay last week. But overall, over 90% of the people voting in Jeff Gluck's poll said that was a good race. And I'll tell you what, that might have been, I went into that Daytona race thinking, this is going to suck. It's going to be fuel saving like it was last time. That was the best Daytona race I'd say we've seen in a while. And I can confidently say that. That was a great race, all things considered.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that was a fantastic race, start to finish. I liked having the first stage as short as it was so that they just ran hard the whole stage, right? There ended up, I think, being maybe a caution in that stage anyway. I don't remember. But there really wasn't too much fuel saving because of the way the cautions played out and the stages played out. So that ended up being kind of nice. Certainly some fuel saving that third stage, but it didn't really seem to affect things because we ended up getting the caution anyway. So yeah, thought it was a really good race. You know, there definitely were 3 lines. The third line struggled still. It did struggle. The only reason it came in really well was because drivers were still fuel saving a little bit. But once they really went for it, that third line kind of went away, and it was really mostly 2 lines. You could, if you get enough cars strung together, form a third line. And then, you know, they had to maintain the form, or you could, you know, the third lane could be putting the guy in the middle, like we used to see, kind of the sucker hole. So in that case, it was still really only 2 lanes. It was really hard to have 3 consistent lanes when there wasn't fuel saving. Now, when there was, there was a lot of great 3-wide action, multiple cars deep. I thought, especially first and second stage. But that final stage, it was kind of hard to get that third lane going when nobody's saving fuel anymore. So, and you can really see the difference in the speed. These teams were running 48 and a half second laps for most of that race. And then once all the fuel was good, they were running 46 seconds laps. So, you know, 2 seconds a lap faster. If you look at Joey Gase, he kept with the pack, other than a little bit at the very first stage. The rest of the race, he kept with the pack. And then the very final restart, he lost like 2 seconds to the field because he just didn't have the horsepower, you know, the car to keep up with them when they were all finally going balls to the wall. So, but overall, yeah, absolutely a fantastic race. Congrats to Harrison Burton getting your first win. It was cool to have, you know, Jeff Burton, his father, on the call there with, you know, Burton getting the win and put himself in the playoffs. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, congrats.
Yeah, it another thing, well, a few things. First off, you know, Kyle Busch, great car all night, finished second and was interviewed after the race, and, you know, basically was asked, you know, could you have done anything to get the win? Because that was probably Kyle's, you know, I mean, his last chance to get into the playoffs is Darlington this upcoming weekend. He has to win. So if he would have got that win at Daytona, he obviously would have got in. And, you know, he kind of threw some shade, it felt like, at Austin Dillon by saying, you know, the only way he could have actually done it was just flat out wreck him. And, you know, we saw what Kyle did. You know, as bad of a rap as that guy gets and has had his entire career, he played it safe, or he did not play it safe, but he did not wreck Harrison Burton. He let him, like, he raced him hard, but he let the better car win in the end. And you know, some other drama, though, you know, Retzlaff in that 62 for Beard Motorsports, you know, they told him, his spotter and his team told him, do not push the 21 to the win. And he pushed the 21 to the win. Very interesting there, you know, putting himself in, I guess, a better position, but also not, you know, sticking with Chevy ties. It'll be interesting to see if there's any backlash there from the organization, from the manufacturer, towards him. But still a good finish there for a couple of the shit boxes, including that Beard Motorsports car with Retzlaff in it getting the top 10. Like I said, Cody Ware getting the top 5. But yeah, overall, just a great race, and unfortunately, we saw a few cars get airborne once again. We saw, the Stuart Haas cars, once again have some bad wrecks at Daytona. It's not the best place for them lately, but definitely shook up the playoff picture. We now have, the 3 guys that were fighting for the position, Buescher, Bubba Wallace, and Ross Chastain. It's likely, it's at most going to be one of those guys likely getting in, barring something catastrophic happening to Ty Gibbs or maybe even Truex. But if there's a surprise winner, we could see all 3 of those guys miss the playoffs this year. So something that's going to be interesting heading into Darlington. But overall, yeah, I think that was a very good race there at Daytona. Very fun one. I think a lot of people, was very profitable in that race, made some money with the bets and everything. So overall, I think that was a good Daytona. But, Harrison Burton winning definitely brings up a question and a lot of controversy now, because he was 32nd, 33rd in points. And, there's a lot of questions whether he quote unquote deserves to be in the playoffs. And this is going to, kind of bleed into my whine about it. But I think it's something that needs to be discussed because, it is a great thing for that team as much as, who was it? John Wood that was interviewed and basically acted like he hated Harrison Burton with a passion, but was glad that he's getting the money for the next few years for this win. Yeah. But, the one thing I saw regarding, the winning you're in the playoffs is potentially, not having that rule for or super speedway races, which I think is interesting, an interesting point. And I want to get your thoughts on this, whether they take away that automatic playoff berth away from, Talladega and Daytona.
I don't think they should. Look, there's only 4 of those in the regular season. For this regular season.
Mm-hmm.
That means even if we get the last 4 drivers in points, there's still 12 spots up for grabs on points and winning traditional races. So I'm totally fine with these races counting. I mean, we're talking about Harrison Burton, who's going to get eliminated in the first round anyway, almost surely. So, right. Is he taking away a spot from Ross Chastain or Bubba Wallace or Chris Buescher? Sure, but those guys are running 15th in points, ballpark anyway. Those aren't the real championship contenders. So, yeah, I don't think they should do this as a rule for all the other races except super speedways. I think that's a little silly.
Yeah, I think it's just like a more so a quick fix, to a problem that technically isn't a problem. And I'm gonna switch gears here and dive right into a whine about it quick because this segue is so good.
Before we do, we need to come back and talk about some Daytona stuff because I have some interesting stats and things I want to talk about. But let's do it.
Let's do yours first, and then we'll go to whine about it.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna do my stats and stuff. So
yep.
Look who won. Harrison Burton. He was, I think, at the shortest 80-1 out there. I think there were some places he was triple digits, right?
I want to say I saw someone hit 1,000-1 somewhere.
Certainly possible. I don't think it was 1,000. But I do think there was some 100-1 bets. I saw, a $10 bet winning $1,010 for sure, which is 100-1.
I thought it was a $10,000 win.
But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is, even if it was 80-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look who won Daytona 500 last year. It was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Yes, I know William Byron won, and Chris Buescher won the 2 other Daytona races this year and last year. Look who won 2 years ago at Daytona. In terms of it was Austin Dillon winning in 2022, and who won the 2022 Daytona 500? I need to rack my brains here and try to remember that. It was Austin Cindric, right? So we're talking 4 of the 6 races this year, or at Daytona, were won by guys who were 30-1 odds or longer. I believe Cindric was even more like 40-1 for the Daytona 500. I think Austin Dillon maybe closed at 30-1 for last year's race, but probably was more like 40-1. So 4 out of the 6. I cannot get to the point where, and we talked about this on the pod last week, but this just adds more data to it. And I've got some stronger numbers to back it up. You cannot bet drivers shorter than 18-1, let's say, at the Daytona 500. I don't care which it is. So I looked at the most dominant super speedway drivers, and I said dominance by how many laps have you led? And there's a clear tier of 7. So it's, and not in any order, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, and to a lesser extent, William Byron. Byron kind of like teeters on the edge. Now you may say, well, that's old Kyle Busch. So you could say William Byron and Kyle Busch kind of teeter there. But the idea is for a lot of these races that Kyle Busch was in his prime, and William Byron is kind of in a new prime now. He's like up and coming because earlier in his career, he wasn't quite as good at super speedways. So let's just say those 7 drivers. Those 7 drivers have now combined for 70 chaos race starts since we moved from the restrictor plate to the tapered spacer. Chaos race meaning either the Daytona 500 or a Daytona cutoff race, or near cutoff race for the playoff race, since this was next to last. 70 chaos starts combined. They have 4 wins. That is 5.7% of the time. If you want to translate that into betting odds, plus 1650. So at best, we could bet these guys at plus 615, plus 1650. Like at best. That's just how it is. And you can take larger sample sizes. They've won 7 of the 130 past starts at chaos races if we go back further into the tapered spacer era, which is only 5.4%. Which then becomes plus 1750 instead of plus 1650. So we can't, okay, maybe Joey Logano's a little better, or maybe Denny Hamlin's a little better, but how do you know, right? I mean, we don't know which of these guys is going to be better, which race. So you kind of just have to lump all of these top tier elite guys together and say, I can't really bet them if they're anything shorter than 18-1. Maybe at 18-1 we can bite. And that doesn't even count like guys like Bubba Wallace is really good. Guys, Austin Cindric's really good. He shows up really well in my model, for example. So we're just at the point where if you're picking guys 18-1 or shorter at chaos races, I just think it's honest. I'm just saying, I think it's a bad bet. I don't think you can do that. So it's just something to remember for the Daytona 500, right? Because we're going to have a long off season. We're going to forget about all these things. My goal for Daytona 500 is to not bet a driver shorter than 18-1.
Plus, it's the beginning of the season. The excitement's coming up. You want to start off on the right foot. But that's a very good point because, leading laps and running up front does not equal finishing up front at super speedways, and that's time and time again. My analysis that I put on Rotoballer this week for Logano basically said that. Like, yeah, he runs up front. Yeah, he projects well in a lot of models, but he doesn't get the finishes. Like, you look at where he finishes at super speedways, and you would think that his odds should be closer to 60-1 the way that he finishes at these races. And
finished 31st, led the most laps, won a stage, finished 31st. 2 out of the 10 chaos races, he has finished inside the top 10. 2.
Yep. And Denny Hamlin made a comment on his podcast this week as well. He made what I think we all assumed, but we didn't quite have like the confidence or the backing of it. But now that he came out and say it, I believed it. He basically said that this is a new era of super speedway racing, and him, like, how good he was before, it doesn't translate. He's not as good as he was before. It's a completely different car, and they have to race completely differently. And he's like, and there's a reason that I've wrecked out, so many races. Now, granted, all of them weren't his fault, but he did, mention this is a different style of racing now. And it definitely, I mean, if you look at how much this new car has even the field on other racetracks, why wouldn't that same thing happen at super speedways? So, yeah, to your point, 100%.
We almost had
and the
Parker
data's just backing it up.
We almost had Parker Retzlaff win that race or finish as top Chevy, which you bet. Like, we were that close to an even bigger upset. So yeah, you can't anymore. You can't bet these guys that short. And it's just one of those things. The data just doesn't back it up. And sure, can these guys win if they're 14, 15 to 1 odds? Yeah, and you'll be like, great, I bet him 14 to 1 and I hit it. But I would still contend that's a bad bet because the probability of that hitting is lower than the odds you're given. So it's just one of those things I need to remember for the Daytona 500, because I do think occasionally I take shots on the Daytona 500, like Ryan Blaney. I love him here. Daytona, long off season, blah, blah, blah. So my goal is to remember chaos races. It's the Daytona 500. It's almost even in a way more chaotic because everybody's in it for themselves. Whereas in the cutoff race, at least there's some teammate kind of stuff that can tame it a little bit at the end, that could potentially tame it a little bit. Now, it hasn't in most of the years, but it still could.
But something like, if Busch or Keselowski's running 1-2 at the cutoff race at Daytona, especially like, this past weekend, Keselowski isn't going to try to pass Buescher on the last lap. If it's the Daytona 500, he's probably going to drive right through him to get that fucking win.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so something like that, it adds to the chaos. And like you said, the data just continues to back it up. So, yeah, I'll make a mental note to remember for you and remind you next season. Do not bet anybody under 18, 20 to 1. Yeah. Someone I did bet 18 to 1 last week was Chase Elliott, who wrecked out early. And I have to give FanDuel a shout out here because they were still offering a cash out with like 10 laps to go in the race for Chase Elliott, who wrecked out already and was out of the race. So shout out to them for allowing me to cash that out while Chase Elliott was probably already back in North Carolina.
And Chase Elliott did end up number 1 in my model at 5.9% to win. That translates to 16 to 1. So you're thinking, okay, well, why not bet him at 17 to 1? Well, because there's model error, right? It's still a model. It still has error bars. So even my most highly predicted win probability driver, when you account for the error bars, 18 to 1 at best.
Yep. But yeah, overall, like we said, just a fun weekend. A lot of fun bets like that. Like the Parker Retzlaff top Chevy bet was. Did I have any intention of that hitting? Absolutely not. In my article that I wrote it up on, I said, do not expect this to hit. But is it something that could possibly hit under the right circumstances? Absolutely. And what did we have at the end of the race? Retzlaff was the second highest Chevy. I think at the end of the race, he was the second highest Chevy, maybe third, but he was up there. And that's what makes these races so damn fun to bet on.
He was the second highest Chevy until the last straightaway. I mean, the highest Chevy, I should say, until the last straightaway.
Yeah, he got slammed into the wall. Yeah, he ended up second highest Chevy. Kyle Busch was top, and then Retzlaff was second. So
I hit
fun stuff.
I hit Parker Retzlaff 20 to 1 top 10. Daniel Hemrick 7 to 1 top 10. Right, like you got to hit these longer shot bets in these chaos races and the $1 million parlay, Jordan. The Retzlaff and Cody Warelegs hit for 119 to 1 if you did the round robin.
Yep. Which, yes, shout out to you for waiting until last week for us to bet that.
I apologize for telling people about that last week, and I'm such a terrible human for telling people to round robin this.
Right. And that was again, like, I think that just added to how fun that race was for me to watch. Because, one more big wreck, and that shot or that bet had a legitimate chance at winning. McLeod and Gase were the last two cars on the lead lap. McLeod restarted like 15th on that final restart. If
7-8 drivers had wiped out and it wasn't Ware and Retzlaff, the bet wins.
Yes. And it was, oh man, like I wasn't rooting for a wreck, but I was also rooting for a wreck. Like it was amazing. I can confidently say, in addition to an amazing broadcast by NBC, cannot give them enough credit. Overall, that was amazing. That was an amazing race. Like I tweeted out, anybody that doesn't follow this sport closely or is just a novice NASCAR fan, they watched that race. They were entertained. They loved it, and they wanted more. I can guarantee it. And it's all because of NBC. Lee Diffie with a great call overall. Like, that was just like perfection.
Just green flag racing missed. Yeah, there was side-by-sides, but 100% of green flag laps shown, either full screen or side-by-side screen.
Mm-hmm. And they did keep up. They did keep the points as they run up a lot, but I'm not even going to complain about that because it made sense for the week. Like, I could complain about that,
a driver popping in on the win, and then
right.
Different drivers, whether it's a driver that's already in the playoffs leading or not in the playoffs leading, you'd see that cut line shift, and it gives you a really good visual idea of what happens when all that takes place. And Martin Truex Jr., he didn't try to run at all. He ended up getting caught up anyway, but he didn't try to do shit in that race. So I was feeling good about that analysis. He didn't try to do anything. And if he had missed all those wrecks, he would have been correlated with, like I said, with your BJ McLeod and Joey Gase, because he would have just been hanging back with those guys on the final restarts as well.
Yep. Another guy that did not really even try to race, kind of surprisingly, was Carson Hocevar. He was one of those that stayed at he tweeted, I think he replied to Gluck and basically said that they were 3/4 throttle the entire race. Ended up finishing 11th. He just wanted to survive, just one of those situations.
Hocevar and Smith were my other top 10 bets, and they finished 11th and 13th. So
yeah,
I was really rooting for something there at the end, because if it takes out Harrison Burton, Kyle Busch, and Christopher Bell, the top 3, then all of a sudden I get Hocevar and Zane Smith top 10s. And if it happens to take out Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, Brad Keselowski, a couple of those other guys, all of a sudden, not only do those top 10 bets hit, but then, like we said, the BJ McLeod, Joey Gase ones have a chance to hit. So I was selfishly rooting for a little chaos there, even on that final restart.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I said, overall, just a great weekend. Shout out to Bet365. I am now the biggest Michael McDowell fan in the world after they dropped an absolutely ridiculous 35-1 line for him to hit the pole. Thank you for
so bummed I couldn't get that number because I had it at 14 when I tracked it in the Action Network app because I was taking my cat to the vet. So Caesars was the only place that had qualifying lines out initially. And when we recorded Running Hot, Michael McDowell was 7-1, I think it was. And I'm like, man, I'm on the fence about it because, like, of the Penske's, which I'm including Todd Gillen and Michael McDowell in that, like, he's the one that could potentially get the least support from Ford just because he's leaving, right? And yes, I know he won 2 of the 3 polls, but I was like, if you want to at 7-1, do it. If you don't, I understand. I'll probably do it. And then get home and I see 14-1. I'm like, okay, yeah, I gotta get that.
Absolutely, yeah. When I tell you my jaw dropped when I saw 35, I could not believe it. And they kept it up. They closed at 11. Everywhere else, McDowell got bet down to like 5. Yeah. And Bet365, they moved it 35 to 28 to 20, and then they kept it at 11 all even on qualifying day. And I'm just jaw drop. Like, I thought I was dreaming. And then I was just waiting for him to qualify second.
I had Todd Gilliland, so I was happy either way.
Same. I had him written up as well, so I was happy either way. But definitely glad McDowell came through. I'm gonna have to go to Long John Silver's and buy some food and see if I can get a McDowell shirt. Like I said, I'm a big fan now. Any other stats that you have from Daytona to your points?
No, I think we're good. Yeah, I don't have much else. Just a whole lot of Daytona chaos as usual. So just think long shots at Daytona. Think long shots, whether it's outrights, top tens, top manufacturers, those kinds of things. Overs in terms of finishing position overs, just that kind of stuff. Any way you can fade really good drivers or back really long shot drivers, that's kind of the thing to do at the chaos races.
Yep. Like I said, though, the Daytona controversy about the playoffs, and before we talked about the new playoff standings, it goes really well with wine about it. So I'm going to do this first. So there's a lot of people that are upset that Harrison Burton is in the playoffs. You know, he having an absolute shit year. He's not going to be back at Wood Brothers next year. They have no chance at winning the championship. They barely have a chance, I would say, to get out of the first round. It's going to take absolute chaos in the first round for them to make it through. But according to NASCAR rules, he is in the playoffs. He will finish top 16 in points. And my whine about it is the people that are complaining about this format now, saying how it's horse shit that Harrison Burton's in it. A fluke win at a super speedway track shouldn't get you in, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Where's this complaining when William Byron won the Daytona 500 and locked himself in? We didn't hear it about then. We wouldn't have heard this if Bubba Wallace won this race and locked himself in. We wouldn't have heard this if Chris Buescher won this race and locked himself in. If Martin Truex Jr. won this and locked himself in. So why are you bitching? Or Kyle Busch, who needed to win? Like, you'd be celebrating this format if it was Kyle Busch that got it in. So you can't sit here and shit on the format just based on the driver. You have to be completely against the format either way, or I just don't get these people, and it's frustrating because you also can't even argue with them because they only see it this way. But I don't understand how we're sitting here and you hate the format just because Harrison Burton. I'm going to sit here. Do I think it's great that he got in the playoffs? No, but at the same time, that's the rules, and they're not going to change. And the fact that people would change their mind based on, if a bubble driver locked themselves in and under the exact same situation is just absolute horseshit. It's stupid. It's, I have nothing else to say other than it's absolutely ridiculous. Harrison Burton deserves to be in the playoffs. Based on the criteria and him legitimately winning that race. Austin Dillon did not deserve to be in the playoffs for intentionally dumping Logano and Denny Hamlin at Richmond. End of story. That is the facts. It's not even my opinion. It's fucking facts.
Yep. Yeah. Austin Dillon's final appeal got denied on Monday.
Yep.
I agree with you. 100% agree with you. If you can't get into the playoffs through points or a win, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Yep. Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, Ty Gibbs, whoever ends up being out, they didn't deserve to be in because they didn't finish high enough in points and or didn't get a win. And that's just the reality of it. If you're sitting there 12th in points, you don't have a win, you got to face it. There's a chance you may not make the playoffs. And here's the thing. We started the chase, back when it was the chase, not the playoffs. And it was 10 cars. We expanded to 12 cars. So especially if you're not in the top 12 in points, you got no damn complaint because that used to be the cutoff was 12 cars just on points. So Bubba Wallace and Ross Chastain don't really have a leg to stand on as far as that is concerned. If a new winner comes this week, either Chris Buescher or Ty Gibbs doesn't have a leg to stand on because hey, they should have beat whoever the new winner is this week at Darlington to prevent them from being the new winner. You know what I mean? So that comes down to you had 26 races to do this and you didn't. I don't care. There's nothing wrong with this playoff format. Just because Harrison Burton's in and he's dead last in points of the full-time drivers, he still beat the other 36 cars or the other 35 cars that are chartered, He still beat them. They didn't finish first in that race. Harrison Burton did. Good on him. And to your point here, when you talked about John Wood, so my whine about was the exact same as yours, but I also remember I was kind of peeved with John Wood in his comments because he was very excited to get, what is it, $2-3 million, something like that, at minimum bonus. That's going to fund us for a couple years, he says. That's great. That's awesome. So is Harrison Burton going to get any more funding for the playoffs then? Well, I don't think so. Or, I don't remember the exact answers. We'll have to see about that or something. You know, you can just tell it was like, I'm just pocketing this money.
That was one of the most awkward interviews I think I've seen. And I don't know if he's just bad on camera or if he legitimately hates Harrison Burton, but it's one of them.
And it doesn't matter either way. It's just not a good look. The guy who got you there, who drove that car, now you're saying, well, yeah, we're probably not going to really give him any extra support in the playoffs. Give him he probably will, but give him a fat damn bonus then at least. But if I'm Harrison Burton, I would at least want a shot at doing something, advancing another round. Like just all that kind of things could add to his resume. And the playoffs are starting. He's going to have 5 playoff points. He's going to have potentially more than Chris Buescher or, Ty Gibbs heading into the playoffs. He could potentially have more playoff points than these guys starting the playoffs. He could be ahead of them and tied for the cut line when the playoffs start. And guess what? Atlanta's in the playoffs. Bristol's in the playoffs. Watkins Glen is in the playoffs. That's like a wild card round.
Mm-hmm. You only got to beat 4 guys to make it to the next round.
Let the guy have a shot. And then, I believe John Wood also runs the Twitter for Wood Brothers Racing, and they were so not excited. The Twitter was so not excited.
And even the next day, like I said, I think they legitimately hate Harrison Burton. I want to know if Harrison maybe fucked his wife or something, because these tweets don't make sense to me. I'm serious. Like, they're either trying to be sarcastic and trying to be funny and it's not hitting, or there is something going on there that, like, it's awkward. It's awkward. I don't get it.
So, yeah, that's my line about it was the exact same as yours, but let's tag on the John Wood interview, social media type stuff. And by the way, this week I'm having the light Raja.
Nice.
Yeah. From Brew Kettle.
Yeah. I'm staying away from beer this week, but I'm going to try the light Raja next week. It's in my fridge. I had to get a new fridge. My when I woke up on Monday, everything in my fridge and freezer was warm. I had to get a new fridge.
Damn.
That's fun. But
well, it's a good thing you hit Michael McDowell to pay for that.
Yeah, right. But one more thing before we move on here and get into the playoffs. You know who also, under these circumstances and these specifics, does not deserve to be in the playoffs, but we haven't heard anything? Austin fucking Cindric. Because you look at his stats this year, yeah, I understand he's 19th in points and he has that win based on, his teammate running out of fuel, but 3 top 10s all season. You know who has more top 10s this season? Austin Cindric's 19th in points. The guys 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th in points all have more top 10s than Austin Cindric, as does the guy 28th, Daniel Hemrick. 29th, Austin Dillon has the same amount of top 10s, as does John Hunter Nemechek, who's 31st in points. So if we want to talk about guys that do not belong in the playoffs, and once again, these people bitching that Harrison Burton, you can throw Austin Cindric in there because he's another guy that isn't going to advance out of the second round and also doesn't deserve. That's not my opinion. Does not deserve a playoff spot. But under these,
let's do this. Austin Cindric, 3 top 10s, but he also has 3 top 14s. Harrison Burton has 5 top 14s.
So you can definitely make the case that Harrison Burton deserves it over Austin Cindric.
Yeah, why do we? I mean, we have random cutoffs, right, for 5, 10, because that's the way our number system works. We're in a base 10 system, but we don't have to be base 10. We can be base whatever we want. If we made the cutoff 14, which, top 14, Harrison Burton has more than Austin Cindric.
Huh. That's funny. But yeah, Cindric just doesn't.
By two.
Cindric just doesn't have the absolutely awful results like Burton does.
Yeah.
But as always, shout out to Luvabella Winery for sponsoring Wine About It and the Brew Kettle. Great sponsors there. Make sure you check them out. As always, I will link that in the description on YouTube, luvabella.com. Make sure you check them out. We are on to the playoff standings, and like I said, that win shakes things up a little bit, quite a bit. Truex is now 58 to the good. Basically, he just needs to start Darlington. It's going to take an absolute catastrophe out of him and an absolute surprise out of others for him not to make it. Ty Gibbs is 39 to the good. Again, another one probably needs to finish Darlington, and he should be in. As long as there's not an outside winner, because then it's going to come down to him and Buescher, who are separated by 18 points. Chris Buescher plus 21 to the good. And then we got Bubba Wallace outside looking in right now, 21 behind. Ross Chastain, 27 behind. And then Kyle Busch, 106, needs a win, absolutely. Same with Briscoe, Gill, and everybody else.
Yep.
This is... Remember a while back when we previewed the playoffs, and I was like, "Yeah, I think all these guys are in." And you're like, "No, we could get a couple surprise winners." And I'm like, "I don't know, I just don't see it out of maybe Daytona." Well, we're fucking here, and this is setting up to be a very wild Darlington race weekend, because as we've seen earlier this year at Darlington, a lot of top contenders can have issues with each other. And this is a long race. This is the Southern 500 is a 500-mile race, 367 laps around Darlington. This is going to be a marathon on Sunday night, and Sunday night race this week. We're getting another night race. Last week our predictions. You said 4 in are Truex, Gibbs, Buescher, Bubba. You still got 3 of the 4. I said Austin Dillon's going to be a surprise, and then we get Truex, Buescher, and Bubba. So I think we might. I'm probably going to end up losing that. You're going to have more right than I am, but overall, you still feeling like it's going to be Truex, Gibbs, and Buescher. Now with Harrison Burton, obviously that 4th spot, or do you think Bubba Wallace can actually pull this off this weekend and get in?
Man, it's so hard to pull this one off for Bubba Wallace, right? We just look at the playoff standings here. He's going to have to pass one of Chris Buescher or Ty Gibbs. He's 21 behind Buescher, 39 behind Gibbs. That's a lot to make up. You got to have a really strong finish and hope one of those guys has a early problem, where before they're even getting stage points type deal.
Yeah.
And you still have to not let Ross Chastain get 6 more points than you.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time. So it's a tough task for either of these two guys, Bubba Wallace or Ross Chastain. And then even if you do get past them, you still have to hope on one of them on points. You still have to hope you don't get a new winner, which low probability, but still non-zero. I mean, Kyle Busch, Josh Berry, Chase Briscoe. There's some guys here that can win this. Eric Jones, as people like to mention, we'll talk about him. There's still some guys that can threaten this one as far as an outside shot at a win.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question for you, though. We know how good Tyler Reddick has been at Darlington. Bubba Wallace currently has 4 straight top 10s at Darlington. Can Bubba Wallace win this race? Straight up, yes or no?
Yes, he can. Is it going to be easy? No, but he can. You don't have to be the best car to win at Darlington. We've seen it time and time again. Regan Smith won at Darlington, right? Ricky Craven won at Darlington. We've seen some surprise Darlington winners. Even the year Joey Logano just a couple years ago, knocked William Byron out of the way. They were probably the fourth and fifth best cars, and Joey was not better than Byron. He just punted him out of the way. But Ross and Larson were better that race, I remember for sure. Dennys slapped the wall in Darlington before, and Tyler Reddick was the best at Darlington earlier this year. Brad Keselowski ended up winning. Not that he's like a major shock, but there's guys in that mid-range that can win this race. It is a possible thing to do. Ty Gibbs almost won this race earlier this year. He's in that 20-1 neighborhood, right? So can Bubba Wallace win this? Absolutely. But certainly, significant underdog too, as everybody is. But, he's probably somewhere between the 8th and 12th most likely to win this race, maybe even as low as 14th or 15th most likely.
It's interesting. So you talk about, maybe not always the best car winning at Darlington, and us getting some surprise winners from time to time. Here's a question for you. See if you know it. Over the last 8 Darlington races, how many different winners have we had?
Eric Jones, Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, I think, won in 2021.
You got a good memory.
So we're at 5 that I've mentioned, or 6,
Yep.
something like that. I would say either 8 or 7.
8.
Okay.
8 different winners over the last 8 Darlington races. We got Martin Truex Jr., Eric Jones, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, and Kevin Harvick. Before that,
why did I miss William Byron? I just straight up left him off. And then I should have obviously thought about either Truex or Harvick, but yeah. No, I named 5 and I straight up left William Byron off, and I knew William Byron was one of those because he's one of my bets this week.
So yep. Just an interesting tidbit there. And I think that it just goes to the point.
So the most recent double winner is Eric Jones.
No, most recent double is Hamlin.
8. Oh, because that was the first race of 2020.
Yeah. Hamlin won
the first race of this year. Yeah.
Yep. Hamlin won in 2020 and 2021. And before that, Harvick won. Harvick doubled up.
Well, Jones did because Jones was the second race of 2019.
Yeah, but Harvick won one in 2020 and in 2021. Or 2 in 2020. Something like that.
He must have won 2 in 2021. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What? Now I gotta check. Something seems off.
I'm pretty sure it was Harvick.
Darlington, sort by chronological first place finishers. Yeah, it was Harvick. It was because there were 3 in 2020. That's what it was.
Yep.
That's what it was. I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Yeah, there were 3 races in 2020 because of the COVID year. We had the doubleheader, and then we had the Southern 500.
Yep.
The math wasn't mathing until I remembered there was 3 in 1 year.
Yeah, that was Harvick's 9-win season.
Yep. Denny had 8 that year, I think it was.
Something like that. But yeah, definitely just to the point of, Darlington is Darlington, and as much as we know who's good at high wear tracks, and we know who's good at Darlington specifically, not always the guy that wins. One guy noticeably off that list, and could make it 9 different winners in 9 races, is one of the favorites. At some books, he is the favorite. Tyler Reddick this week has arguably had the best car here over the last 2 races. He had led 174 laps earlier this season. starting from the pole. Last year in this race, he started third. He led 90 laps. He finished second. Always good at this track type. What do you think about Tyler Reddick this week? And what do you think about going back to the Bubba Wallace thing? Is there any chance that you think 2311 puts more emphasis on Bubba Wallace this week and getting him to the playoffs? Is there any potential, like you mentioned last week with potentially McDowell not getting the support? Is there any chance that you think Bubba might get a little bit more support this week?
He should get all the attention, but it doesn't change the fact that Tyler Reddick is still going to be Tyler Reddick here. Mm-hmm. He's still going to have a good car here. It's not like they're going to give him a crap car or anything. The only place where it really matters is if it's late in the race and Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace are both running in the top three, does Tyler Reddick cede the spot to Bubba Wallace or try to rough up the leader if they're running second and third, right? Those kinds of things. Like, it's really only going to matter if both of them are in the top three at the end.
Right.
To where, you got to downgrade Tyler Reddick. But what are the chances that happens? Well, if we look earlier this year, my model gave Bubba Wallace a 13% chance of a top three finish, and it gave Tyler Reddick a 25% chance of a top three finish. It would be higher now. He'd probably have more like a 33% chance of a top three finish. So let's say 33 times Bubba Wallace said 13%, 0.13. Now you have to take out some of that because they can't both run first. They can't both run second. They can't both run third. So at best, we're talking 2-3% chance that they're both running top three at the end of this race.
Yeah. Chances are not going to happen.
Yeah. So that's really all you got to downgrade Tyler Reddick is a fraction of a couple percent.
Mm-hmm. And I will note that he does have the Jordan jinx on him this week. BetMGM opened him at plus 750. I could not pass that up. As much as I don't like betting outrights early in the week, with the way he's been qualifying this year and how good he is at Darlington, I could not pass up plus 750. So I definitely hit that. I feel good about that bet. I like that. But here's a question for you. Do we see could we see a surprise winner this week? One guy that has finished top 10 in 3 of the last 5 Darlington races, Justin Haley, came away 9th earlier this year. Now, obviously, I'm not sitting here saying that I think Justin Haley is going to win this race, but could we see a mid-tier or a low-tier guy somehow steal this thing?
Could we? Yeah. I mean, like I said,
anything's possible.
Ricky Craven has won it. Ward Burton, one of his few career wins, was here. In an era probably where it was a little bit easier to maybe get some of these long shot wins, but that said, there's a lot of parity here in the next gen car. So, it's possible. I mean, Eric Jones 80-1 in 2022 for Petty, which is now Legacy Motor Club. So, yes, there's absolutely a chance we can get a long shot winner. And that's why, when I mentioned what are the chances we get a new winner, something like a Josh Berry, a Chase Briscoe, Eric Jones comes to mind, in terms of just guys that we know are good here and or have the equipment. Wouldn't surprise me if somehow Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was good here. Noah Gragson has always been really good here. Was a little surprisingly slow in the first race this year. I shouldn't say slow, just one of those guys I expected to contend for maybe a top 10 finish, and he kind of just ran in the mid-teens all day. Noah Gragson did shockingly have speed.
I went back and looked at that race and my bets on that race, and we both bet Gragson for top forward, and he wasn't awful, but he was, I would say, disappointing to where where not our expectations were, but where we thought his ceiling was in that race.
Absolutely, 100%. And so, I mean, some of these guys absolutely can win. I think Alex Bowman, he's sitting out there at what? Let me pull up outright odds, 65-1. Do I think Alex Bowman can win this race at 65-1? Yeah, I sure as heck do think Alex Bowman can win this race at 65-1. If there's one thing we know about Alex Bowman, he's good at high tire wear tracks. He's won at Auto Club. He's won at Richmond. He's won at Chicagoland, which was a high tire wear track before it went away. Martinsville's got some tire wear. Vegas, he won at tire where Chicago street course, we saw, tire management come into play with rain tires and things like that. Dover can sometimes have some tire wear. Really only Pocono is like his main win that isn't really like medium or higher wear. So wouldn't surprise me if Alex Bowman did something here. I mean, he's got a 6th place finish in this very race, the Southern 500 in 2020. In terms of any other races, he had a 2nd place at Darlington in 2020 as well in the 3-race year, the COVID year. So 65-1, Alex Bowman wouldn't surprise me. Now he wouldn't be a new winner, but you're asking long shots. To me, 65-1 is a long shot.
Before we get further into Darlington here, quick update on the regular season points standings, because we're going to crown a regular season champion this week. Tyler Reddick now has a 17-point lead over Kyle Larson. Chase Elliott's 18 behind. Denny Hamlin slammed with that massive penalty. We didn't even talk about that. Hamlin and Toyota, TRD made a massive mistake. What did Hamlin get docked? I forget the specifics here.
75 points. I think it was like $100,000 for the team, not him, I believe. So yeah, it was a pretty damn big penalty.
He lost like 10 playoff points too, didn't he?
And then even more just from dropping in the standings, he'll lose.
So
somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 5 more, just depending on how far back he falls in the standings.
So Hamlin's now 8th in the point standings. And a lot of books still have him as one of the championship favorites, one of the heavy favorites. And I feel like I wish there were some, maybe like some matchups or head-to-heads on point standings finish, because this is big. This is a big penalty for him, and I think it takes him from. I think it definitely takes him down a notch as far as actual being able to contend for this championship. But like I said, Reddick is leading the point standings, 17 points over Larson. One interesting tweet that I saw: if Kyle Larson would have got the finish for that, who was it? Allgaier. If he would have ran Charlotte, he would be winning. He'd be leading the point standings. I think that's going to be a storyline coming up. I think if he finishes 2nd in his regular season points, and maybe if he gets eliminated in one of these rounds by a couple of points, that is going to be such a storyline to pay attention to. And me, I root for chaos, so I'm gonna root for that. But something to keep an eye on. That's it. It's wild how these
real quick on the Denny Hamlin thing. It was 10 points. He also loses his Bristol win as far as eligibility. So it's actually 15 points because he gets those 5 points taken away for his Bristol win as far as playoff points. Then he also drops in the standings. So it's going to be in the neighborhood of like an 18-point playoff point penalty.
Which is so big. So big.
So think about if Denny Hamlin misses a cut by anything less than 18, 19, 20, 21 points.
And honestly, realistically, he's probably not finishing better than 7th in regular season points, because he's 6 points behind Keselowski, who's in 7th. He's a full 25 points behind Bell in 6th. Yeah, Bell.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see after, after Darlington, what the final regular season standings are. Add 75 to his, then we'll be able to calculate how many playoff points he lost from the positional points you get for the end of the regular season point standings.
Yeah. But it's gonna come down to Reddick, Larson, or Elliott for these regular season points. Definitely think Reddick's the favorite there, despite the fact that Larson can go out and dominate this race. But let's see what happens here. So something to keep an eye on, in addition to all of these playoff scenarios that could be going on this weekend at Darlington. So now we're gonna jump right into Darlington, talk about that a little bit more. Like I said, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, the favorites, consensus around with the sports books. Obviously these odds are shifting a little bit. Do you think that's right? Do you think those are the guys to beat coming into this race weekend? I know there's a couple, not mid-tier, but like underneath these quote unquote elite guys at Darlington that you like. But do you think that the sports books heading into this weekend have it figured out as far as who should be the favorites?
The top three should be who the top three are.
Right.
So yes, whatever order you want to choose, it is whatever. It is what it is. Earlier this year, I had Larson 1, Hamlin 2. I actually had Byron 3 and Truex 4 and Reddick 5. But I'm quite sure with how this year has developed, it'll be Larson, Hamlin, and Reddick 1, 2, 3 for sure. My model will have that. Then it'll be a question of whether it's Truex 4th or Byron 4th. I would give the nod to Byron, given my model liked him a little more than Truex earlier this year, and Byron overall has been better this year. So I think it's pretty much spot on. I think it's just, you're splitting hairs if you want to prefer Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, or Tyler Reddick at this point. I think you're just kind of splitting hairs. And Truex is, let's face it, he's a tier down. He hasn't won this year. It feels like every place we go where he's really good, he's not quite as good as he needs to be these days to pull off that win. And that's part of the aging process, part of the I'm in retirement mode. We don't see these guys go out and win 6 races in their retirement year. Think about Jeff Gordon. He won 1. Jimmy Johnson won 0. Kevin Harvick, I think, won 0, if I remember correctly. Tony Stewart won 1. These guys just aren't putting up huge win totals in their final year of their career.
Yeah, I ran my numbers earlier today, and I have Reddick, Larson, Hamlin. Those are my top 3. Then it goes to Byron, and I got Christopher Bell up there as well.
Yep, Bell will definitely be up there in my model. I think it'll be close between him and Truex, but I would probably still give the nod to Truex. But we'll see what my final model says. I've been doing a lot of tinkering with my model this week just because I think this is an interesting race. We've got playoff implications and all that kind of stuff as well.
And and that's gonna bleed into betting lines as well. And one thing that I noticed as we were recording here, I was kind of looking it up. Bet365 has Ty Gibbs versus Christopher Bell, and Gibbs is the favorite at -130. I'm not sure I agree with that. Despite the fact that Gibbs had a ton of speed here in the first race, I still think I like Bell a little bit better. Plus the fact that Gibbs might be most likely playing it safe at Darlington if there's not a new winner.
I agree with you. I'm not going to be on Ty Gibbs this week. This is a spot where he's ahead of Chris Buescher, and his only goal at the end of this race is to be ahead of Chris Buescher in points. That's his only goal. If I'm ahead of Chris Buescher in points, it doesn't matter what else happens. I'm in the playoffs. There's no way that both Bubba Wallace and Ross Chastain will pass him on points if he remains ahead of Chris Buescher in points. So, he could stay ahead of Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace could leapfrog him and I guess potentially a new win or something like that. But if Ty Gibbs just has a normal, decent, safe day, Bubba Wallace can't pass him. Ross Chastain can't pass him in points. The only thing they could do is one of those guys or one new winner could be, happen to move the cut line up. So that's why he has to remain ahead of Chris Buescher. So pushing for a win is the wrong thing to do if you're Ty Gibbs. If you're in the lead, and take it what it gives to you, what the race gives to you, what the track, your car gives to you. Don't push it. Don't push it. Don't abuse your car. Don't get too close to those walls. Don't get too close to Darlington stripes. There's no need for any of that. Don't race people hard. Let them go. Let them go. If somebody's giving you trouble, let them go. All Ty Gibbs has to do is finish ahead of Chris Buescher in points, and he has an 18-point cushion. It's pretty easy to not screw that up if you don't make mistakes. Now, if your pit crew makes a mistake, if a piece or a mechanical happens, that's a different story. But as far as the driver's side of things, it's pretty easy for him not to screw this up. So he shouldn't be pushing it. So you got to downgrade his upside here.
Yeah, I agree with you. He did finish second earlier this year. He led 34 laps, but he's in a completely different position right now. And like I said, I don't I typically don't bet head to heads, but I do. I like that Bell over Gibbs. Haven't bet it yet, but it's definitely caught my eye. Switching gears to back to some guys that could disrupt the playoff picture this week. Looking back to my mantra when it comes to these next gen cars, we don't see a lot of change, especially these tracks that we visit twice a year. Typically, the guys that are fast the first time are going to be fast the second time. And if you remember back to the first race at Darlington this year, like obviously Tyler Reddick had an absolute rocket ship. Some of the other guys, Larson was fast, expected that. Hamlin was fast, but who was really fast in that race? Overall was Ford. Ford had, in practice, was the best when it came to tire fall off. And I remember, because my analysis that week, I will admit, it was so off. It was wrong. I did not trust Ford that week. The data in practice said Ford's going to be the best on the long runs, and that's exactly what happened. We go back, we look at that race. Brad Keselowski ended up in victory lane. Chris Buescher was up there. And then you look at the Stewart-Haas guys. You look at like Josh Berry, who started back in mid-30s. He started 33rd, finished 3rd, legitimately had speed. Chase Briscoe finished top 5 after starting 13th. Ford's legitimately had speed. Justin Haley, like I said, ended up there in 9th at the end of the race. Still had a decent race, though, because he had a driver rating of 72.5. Michael McDowell, top 10 finish, another sneaky guy on high wear tracks. But, we mentioned Josh Berry here. You did earlier as one of those mid-tier guys that could win this race. He's hovering there at 50-1. You like betting that, or are you looking at some of the other options, for someone like a Josh Berry, and potentially hitting, a long shot a week after the long shot race?
Yeah, I mean, he's 60-1 at BetMGM. Here's the thing. He was fast. I think he ended up, what was it in green flag speed? 11th, maybe?
Which is amazing considering, like I said, he qualified 33rd.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So flags, my flags metric, track position adjusts that and uses some other things in terms of like, it's not just pure green flag speed. It's healthy cars and all these other things. So adjusting for all those things, Josh Berry was 6th in flags, I believe it was, from Darlington. Yeah, 6th in flags. So track position and strategy and all that type of stuff adjusted, which is a really, really strong showing. Do I want to bet him 60-1 outright? I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Like I said, I'm fine-tuning my model. My model's been good this year. It's done me well. We've had a lot of bad luck. But there's other things I'm adding into the model, other pieces of data that I'm, kind of just pulling into the model. I'm just trying to see what I can throw at it before NFL season, to have something a little extra for the end of the season here, as we go in the last 10 races of the regular season, because then NFL hits and I'm pretty much busy until next season starts. So I want to get a jump start on my model for next season, because I've run the same model for 2-3 years now, and it's served me well. And I'm not saying I'm making changes because this season hasn't gone well for me on a betting perspective. I'm just making changes because I've developed new metrics that have been more predictive, and we've found new metrics and we have new ways of getting data and stuff like that. So I'm building enough of a sample size on these metrics to now want to add new pieces of data. And so that can only help. That'll only make the model more accurate going forward. So it's one of those things where like, well, why didn't I do it earlier this year? Well, we're only 2 years into some of these metrics. It's 36 races times 272 races isn't like that much. I can't, especially when we start subdividing tracks and track types and you only have 5 road course races a year or something. 10 races isn't really a lot to build a model off of with some of these pieces of data. So it's one of those things where I'm kind of just tweaking my model a little bit, seeing what new metrics I can come up with, what new data is out there that I've been able to scrape and stuff and add those in and see what kind of improvements I can make. So what I will say is certainly Josh Berry is catching a lot of people's attention, including mine, but I haven't bet him yet.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what Josh Berry does this week. I'm with you. Like, I want to bet, like, I want to throw like $5-10 on 60-1 just to have it, because there's a few things I like about Berry this week. One is obviously Childers knows how to set up a car at Darlington. Like, Kevin Harvick was amazing here. Obviously, Berry had a shit ton of speed here in the first race. And like I said, he started back in the 30s. Now, if you remember back during that time of the season, Stuart Haas, specifically this 4 team, did not know how to qualify. You know what they've figured out since the All-Star break? Is how to qualify. Top 5 starting positions at Iowa, Nashville, Pocono, Richmond, and Daytona last week. Josh Berry suddenly is decent at qualifying. If he gets a good starting position at Darlington this weekend, I wish he was sitting more. I wish there was some more attractive top 10 lines for him.
Yeah.
I haven't really looked what the best ones are yet, but I know I haven't seen any that I love. But yes, I'm on the Josh Berry train. I think he can definitely surprise some people this weekend. And if it, I'm looking up top 10. Yeah, see, plus 210 isn't there for me. But at the same time, could I definitely see him being good enough to bet top 10? Yes, and if he qualifies up front, that plus 210 is going to go away. But I still like it. I think Berry has a very good shot this weekend.
Here's something. I'm getting way ahead of things, but I'm just looking through because actionnetwork.com/NASCAR has things listed in basically in the order they like kind of had opening odds at certain books or whatever. But I'm looking, and a few spots below Josh Berry, and this is not in order of odds, is Shane Van Gisbergen. Shane Van Gisbergen, 750-1 to win at BetMGM. I'm curious what top 10 odds might translate for that. I believe we probably have those
20
for SVG. So SVG, yeah, 20-1 at Bet365. A little curious there, because AJ Allmendinger always runs well at this track. And this is one of those tracks where, like, especially in a 500-mile race, we can get some attrition, right? And then getting ahead of myself, I went scrolling through SVG. Where is he good? What kind of tracks has he been good at? To see if I want to make that. Finished 14th at Richmond in the Xfinity Series, high wear. 15th at Darlington, high wear. It's like I'm not really there. But then I look. He finished 6th at Phoenix. He finished 11th at Martinsville. And then I'm looking ahead to, SVG just had some races added to his schedule for the Cup Series. And he's going to be racing Martinsville. And you know who was always good at Martinsville? AJ Allmendinger, road course racer. Juan Pablo Montoya, road course racer. Marcus Ambrose, road course racer. These road course ringers are really good at Martinsville. And SVG, one of his best races this year in the Xfinity Series was Martinsville.
Mm-hmm.
So just put a little pin in that. Can't forget about SVG at Martinsville.
I think I might be there on SVG 20-1 this week.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the number of times that I've bet Daniel Hemrick this year at 20 or 30-1.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like BetMGM is about the only book that has him priced correctly, though.
Yeah.
20-1, I think, is correct for him at a top 10. He's plus 350 for a top 10 at DraftKings. What in the actual
ridiculous.
Hell?
Yeah.
Shorter than Daniel Suarez, shorter than Todd
is
Gilliland.
30-1. Hemrick, his teammate, is 30-1 at DraftKings for a top 10.
Man.
So yeah, SVG is anywhere from 3.5 to 20-1 for a top 10 finish, depending on the book.
This is the second week in a row that some odds at DraftKings just amaze me. And the first one was last week at Daytona.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch closed as the favorite there at 7-1 for Daytona. They either got hit or I don't know. Because every other book closed Kyle Busch at 16-1 last week.
Yeah. They must have gotten hammered by somebody or a group or, some random Discord was like, bet this, and everybody and their brother bet it. I don't know.
Man, that was, I still didn't understand that when I saw that.
No, they must have had a lot of liability on Kyle Busch.
Yeah. Yeah, SVG, same odds as Michael McDowell. Like, give me the head-to-head. Give me McDowell versus SVG.
Yeah.
Please. You can even make like McDowell like minus 130. I'll fucking hammer that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Did you see that? Speaking of head-to-head, you see that DraftKings opened host of our minus 130 against Harrison Burton?
I did not.
Yeah. It quickly moved to minus 175.
I will say this is a very good track for Harrison Burton.
This is a decent track. Yeah, I'm not there on 175. I could get there. But yeah, he has a 6th place finish here, a 21st place finish here, 14th. He was 22nd earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Man, now I mean, I'm not betting Harrison Burton at plus 130, but
in the Xfinity Series in his final year at Darlington. It's a good track for Harrison Burton. So it's a great track for Carson Hocevar, don't get me wrong. But it's a good track for Harrison Burton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not as lopsided as you may think. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the other Stewart-Haas guys. As far as outright winners, let's see here. Gregson's available at 100 to 1. Briscoe's 75 to 1 on Caesars. If we like Josh Berry, do we like those guys and their long shot odds? Looking at top 10s, you can get Gragson at plus 350. You can get Briscoe at plus 300. I don't hate Briscoe plus 300. And obviously Gragson is Gragson.
It's a decent bet, I think, for Chase Briscoe plus 300. I would love for Chase Briscoe to be longer in outright odds, right? Because I have the minus 1,000 to not make the playoffs. So can you give me like a plus, or a 100 to 1 to win instead of a 70 to 1? I might sprinkle enough to cover my bet and still turn a decent profit. We'll see. But I dodged the big one, right? I dodged Chase Briscoe, at Daytona. That was the one I needed to dodge the most as far as hitting the Chase Briscoe to not make the playoffs bet. I mean, that was a 10 to 1 against making the playoffs when there were 3 races left, and unless he won Daytona, probably didn't win any of these. I mean, I had over 20 to 1 against making the playoffs as fair value. So it's one of those, like, I love betting those minus odds when I have a big edge on them, not when I have a small edge. And at close, I had Chase Briscoe 1.78% to win, like post-practice qualifying, all that stuff. There was no practice, but I had him 1.78% to win Daytona, which I think makes sense. If the top driver is 5.9%, then the median or average driver with 40 drivers would be 39 to 1. That's 2.5% or something like that. 40 drivers, 2.5%. And Chase Briscoe is probably a below average super speedway driver, so I think 1.8% made sense on Chase Briscoe for Daytona. So just need to dodge him here. Maybe if he, like, post practice qualifying, he ends up like 200 to 1. Like, let's say he qualifies in the back, kind of like what happened to Josh Berry. Qualifies in the back, but it has like really nice, like, low fall off. Maybe I'll sprinkle him like 200 to 1 to win or something post practice qualifying. Only as a pure hedge to not making the playoffs.
I don't think you have anything to worry about, but obviously there is the chance there. I will note, though, if you remember, so I had like 3 season-long bets this year. One of them was Buescher over Kyle Busch, which is still sitting there. I feel very good about that. If Buescher makes the playoffs, that's a win. But if you remember, one of my bigger bets of the season was Ross Chastain to make the playoffs, and 365 let me cash it out about a month ago or so. I'm very glad I cashed that out.
Yeah.
I'm thanking whoever for getting in my brain and me deciding to cash that out. And also, I did cash out the Kyle Busch bet to not make the playoffs 2 weeks ago, and I don't think he's going to make the playoffs. But I would not have enjoyed that Daytona race as much if I did not cash that bet out. Like, I don't care that I lost some of my profit, but these last 2 weeks, like, Kyle Busch has been right there. So I'm more than happy that I gave up some of my profit with that bet to not have to sweat these last 2 weeks.
How about this? Yeah, so it was last year that IndyCar, Alex Palou, was minus 300 to win the title. And basically the only way he didn't win the title was like if he wrecked every race the rest of the season or something. And the guy who was second in points, finished top 3 every race or something. So people in my Discord asked me, they're like, Palou minus 300 to win the title. I was like, absolutely. I love these minus odds bets, these big minus odds bets. But how about my weekend? Not only did I have the Daytona 500 hitting the 20-1 top 10, the 7-1 top 10, the parlay. Jordan, because I told you about these bets and I told the Action Hour Discord, Alex Palou to finish on the podium. I had Graham Rahal over Linus Lundqvist. That one hit. So IndyCar went great. The only truck bet I made, which I told you about, and I told the Action Network Discord about, Nick Sanchez, top 5, plus 275. He literally ran top 5 the whole race. So great weekends. It's nice to have those. And IndyCar have been on fire this year, dude. The Indy 500 didn't go great, but almost every other IndyCar race this year, not all, but almost all of them, like more than not, have gone really well this year. So it's been a really good IndyCar year, especially second half of the season.
Yeah, like I mentioned last week, when you messaged me and you're like, "Hey, bet this on IndyCar," like I don't question, I don't say anything. I just immediately go in and bet it. And I did it this weekend with Palou and I hit the Sanchez too. Bet 365 has to just hate me because after the McDowell bets and I hit Retzlaff 20-1 top 10 on there too. Then I went and bet Sanchez on Sunday. It was my only bet on the Truck Series, and I hit that plus 275. Fun.
Only one I didn't do well on was Xfinity, but I think I had less than a unit total. I had half a unit on some top Ford bets, and I sprinkled Jeffrey Earnhardt top Toyota, and maybe one other bet, like an outright or something, a Sam Mayer outright. So I had less than a unit total on Xfinity. And that, again, I haven't even counted. I forgot about the Michael McDowell pole bet. So hit a 14-1, a 21, a 7-1. Good weekend. Good IndyCar. So distraction there, but we're talking about those minus bets and then playoff odds and all that stuff. And I got to thinking about that Palou playoff odds bet and then how good of a weekend it was. So IndyCar is going to end with 3 ovals. So this year I would not bet Palou at minus 500, wherever he is right now. No betting him because Will Power, Scott McLaughlin, Team Penske, they're the best at the ovals. And Palou is good at them, but he's never won on an oval.
Is Palou's like the heavy favorite to win the championship, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or am I thinking something else?
No, you're right. Go over to Bet 365. I'll pull up the championship odds if I can find them. Motorsports. Oh, do they not have IndyCar championship odds? What the hell? All right, I'll go to DraftKings. I know they do. I saw them earlier today. IndyCar Series Championship. Palou minus 800. Will Power plus 600. Colton Herta plus 700. Scotty Mack 80-1.
Wow.
Dixon 150. Pato 500-1. Joseph Newgarden 500-1. Kyle Kirkwood not even listed. Right now, Palou leads by 54 points, which is about a race. And there's only 3 races left, so he definitely should be a very heavy favorite. But if he has one wreck and Will Power wins, this thing is all of a sudden tight.
Wide open.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes
more
a tight
open,
race.
I guess.
If Pelot wrecks it at Milwaukee first race, and Pelot did wreck at Iowa first race, and Will Power wins Milwaukee first race, and Will Power did win Iowa second race. I mean, we're talking a 15-point championship probably, or something like that, even less potentially. So, and then if Scotty Mack, he is 88 points behind. Scotty Mack has won one oval race this year as well. He won the first Iowa race. If he's able to go back-to-back at Milwaukee, like if either Will Power or Scott McLaughlin sweeps Milwaukee, we go into Nashville with them. Even if Pelot gets decent finishes at Milwaukee, we go to Nashville with them at least having a shot. And they would be favored on an oval versus Pelot in a head-to-head. Now, I'm not saying making up a 30-point deficit, but it's not out of the realm of possibility Will Power or Scotty Mack wins this title, or even Colton Herta, although I'd say Herta and Pelot are about a push at ovals.
Just potential excitement across every racing series, huh?
Absolutely, except Formula One.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well,
there may be. I just don't pay attention to Formula One right now.
Well, like I feel like I haven't heard Verstappen win in a while.
Every race,
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, what's his name for McLaren? Norris, I think it is.
Yeah, Lando Norris or something.
Doing a lot of winning. Yeah, Lando Norris. Let me pull the Formula One standings up. Yeah, so Lando Norris has won 3 of the last 6 races, and Max Verstappen. Oh, I'm sorry, that was pole position. Lando Norris has won 2 races this year. He won the most recent one, but Max Verstappen has not won each of the last 5 races.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty crazy. He
Yeah,
has a 70-point lead over Lando Norris in the title standings with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 race weekends to go. So certainly not in the clear there for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier this year, it was like you just bet you could just bet Verstappen every single race, but then something happened recently. But getting back on track, you got anything else for Darlington before we make our picks?
Honestly, I don't. I mean, it's Darlington, high tire wear, gonna be a lot of fall off. Practice is gonna matter a lot. Yep. We'll be able to tell which cars are falling off, which aren't, who's good, who's bad. Can't really bet Ty Gibbs outright. Just one of those things. Eric Jones, let's talk about him.
Yeah. Obviously, we've hit Eric Jones big in the past here.
Yes.
And right now, let's see, his top 10 odds are plus 250. I don't like that. And his outrights have gotten bet down quite a bit. I want to say he opened 60 to 1.
He opened 100 to 1 at Westgate. Then he got bet to 80. Then he opened 80 to 1 at, I believe it was Caesars and or some other books. The longest right now is 66 to 1 at BetMGM.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, Bet Rivers has a 66 also. But other than that, 35 to 1 at DraftKings, 37 to 1 at FanDuel, 35 to 1 at Caesars. So I don't have Bet365 up in front of me because I had IndyCar open.
I want to say he's 35.
Yeah, he's probably in that neighborhood there. Bet365.
I definitely could not get behind betting. Jones is 28 at 365.
It's just there's so many things to say about Eric Jones and why I wouldn't even bet 80 to 1 or even 100 to 1.
Uh-huh.
And it starts with the fact that he hasn't been good this year. It's not his fault. I mean, he's better than his teammate John Hunter Nemechek by 5 points in the standings. It would be 6 points if Jones's points per race was used because he missed 2 races. So he's been fine relative to his teammate. It's just the team has been slow. Eric Jones does not have, and I got a really good question. Well, I guess you kind of technically did. You quote tweeted me because I was talking about how Eric Jones only ran 1.7% of the laps in the top 15 earlier this year at Darlington. 1.7%. Contrast that with in 2022, the year he won at Darlington for Legacy. He won the second race, so the race we're going to this weekend. But in the first race that year, he ran 98.5% of the laps inside the top 15. That is a sign of we have a good car here. We have a good car this year, that kind of thing. It makes sense to bet him 80-1 at his best track when he's running really well. So you quote tweeted that and pointed out, and very good question was, well, wasn't that right after he injured his back, his first race back? Great question. And yes, it was. And maybe that did affect him. But the problem is in the intermediate package this year, he has 0 races. 0 inside the top 12 in flags in the intermediate package. And only 1 race in the top 15, and that's 15th in the intermediate package. And that was not Darlington. So compare that to the year he won in 2022. He had 6 races in the top 12 in flags in the intermediate package before Darlington that year, before the second Darlington that year, which included the first Darlington. He was 18th in points 2 years ago. He's 25th this year in points per race because he missed 2 races. So it's just a different team. This team is not what they were 2 years ago. They don't have the performance. 80-1 Eric Jones 2 years ago, great. 80-1 Eric Jones this year, can't do it. When you haven't run top 12 at all this year in speed in the intermediate package, and you didn't run well up this track earlier this year, can't do it.
As much as I'd like to see Eric Jones surprise and win this race, I like Eric Jones. And as much money as he's won me at Darlington in the past, I think he could probably be at 150-1 this week, and I wouldn't. And I wouldn't bet it. Here's the thing: you know how many top 10 finishes he has this year? 1.
Yep.
You know what race
Daytona
that
500.
was? The Daytona 500. And you know what they're really not good at this year? Qualifying. Now it doesn't like I said. Josh Berry had a great car here in the first race. Did not qualify well. He got up to 3rd, but you still, the chances of you to actually win a race, you're going to need to qualify at least decent. Eric Jones and this 43 team are not good at qualifying this year at all. Their average start is 27. And that's it. Most of these weeks, he's starting in the 30s. You know, I couldn't even bet him. I don't even know if I'd bet Eric Jones for a top 10 if it was 5-1. That's how much I'm not on Eric Jones this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here's another thing in, for example, lap averages and stuff like that from the first Darlington race. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He was 15th in 10 lap average. Sounds great and all. But that car had some big fall off when you compare it to, for example, Josh Berry, right? Yep. Josh Berry, from his 5 lap to his 15 lap average, fell off 0.2 of a second per lap. Eric Jones fell off over 0.5 of a second per lap. And so even though Eric Jones was faster than Josh Berry over 5 and 10 laps, he was slower over 15, slower over 20, slow over 25, and it was getting worse and worse compared to Josh Berry. So just one of those things where you really can't, deny the practice data even. Eric Jones just had big fall off, and the Fords didn't. So, between those two, if Berry's 66-1 and Jones is 66-1, I'm taking the guy that performed better and had less fall off.
Yep. Give me a head-to-head of Jones
Yeah. Give
versus
me a Jones
Barrett.
Berry head to head. Let's go.
Yeah. And to hammer home this point, when analyzing practice this weekend, I'm not going to sit here and say lap averages don't matter, but fall off is so much more important at Darlington than a 15 lap average. You need to look at these fall offs from like 5 to 10, 5 to 15, 5 to 20, and see which cars are falling off more, because you're going to see these cars. They're going to see some cars that are really good on the short runs, and they have good speed, in 15 lap, 20 lap averages. You need to, the cars that are going to be the best at Darlington, though, are the ones that fall off the least while also maintaining speed on a long run. Like, it's really weird to try to explain, but if you actually look at the numbers, you'll be able to see it. And it comes down to the fall off of certain drivers and certain cars that just, like you said, 0.2 of a second per lap fall off compared to 0.5 of a second is massive at a track. Like,
Yep.
yeah, you're not gonna make up all that time, in the first part of that run, because these aren't short runs. These green flag runs at Darlington. So tire fall off. Make sure you're actually looking at the data this week.
Let's go back real quick to that Eric Jones example, because he was, like I said, he was 15th in 10 lap average. That was out of 36 cars. All 36 cars made a representative 10 lap average. Now, some of them, Blaney Hosvar Hemrick, did theirs on slightly older tires because I think maybe there was like a super early caution, or they came in, realized their car sucked and pitted. But either way, Jones was 15th out of, let's say, 33 cars. That's top half of the field in 10 lap average.
Yep.
But you go to 30 lap average, he was 10th out of 15 cars. That's bottom third of the field, right? So that's what we, if you're going from percentage of field wise, you're going from a top half, top third almost, to a bottom half, bottom third. That shows you're degrading relative to the field.
Mm-hmm. Another good way to look at it is something like that. Yep. All right. Anybody else you want to talk about?
Nope. Definitely think we had to touch on Eric Jones, because he's
he's hot.
He's a guy that people love here. People love him here, as they should.
Understandably.
I mean, we hit him 80 to 1, 70 whatever, 75 to 1. I think some people had. I had 80 to 1. So yeah, I mean, that was exciting. That was 2 years ago, man. That was the sweet spot. It was like Bubba Wallace 30 to 1, Eric Jones 80 to 1, Chris Buescher 125 to 1. FanDuel put up that bad line on Kevin Harvick 130 to 1. But even then, on midweek, I was on him 25 to 1 before the post practice and qualifying bad line.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that was Richmond, wasn't it?
Yep, it was Richmond. So it was a great time of year. We'll see if that happens again. But yeah, I feel like we're going to have a good grasp on practice and on performance this weekend if you just really pay attention to practice and you really pay attention to fall off and things like that.
Yep, 100%. But that's going to get us to picks to win and 36 for 36. And my turn to go first this weekend. I went back to the shitter after getting a third place finish out of Ty Gibbs at Michigan. I had Austin Dillon at Daytona last week, finished 22nd. You had Eric Jones, finished 17th. You now have 3 straight picks to win outside the top 10. You're trying to get on my level, Nick. You're not quite there. I'm still much worse.
Eric Jones was a random pick, if you remember that.
Yep. Yeah, Daytona doesn't really count. But I'm going to go first. I need a win. I need a fucking win. I'm going with the guy that I think is going to win. He's already the Jordan jinx. I'm adding the second jinx on him, Tyler Reddick. I'm going Reddick. I have a feeling he just kicks the shit out of everybody this week. Gets that regular season points championship, dominates this race, gets 5 more points or 7 more points, whatever. I think he could win both stages. Give me Tyler Reddick at Darlington. Who you got?
I'm going to go with the guy who was potentially better than him earlier this year. Kyle Larson finished first in stage 1,
Mm-hmm.
and then DNF'd. So I'm gonna go Kyle Larson. I don't think I've picked Larson in a while.
You picked him at Indianapolis, which he won.
Oh, all right. Well, then maybe he's my good luck charm.
You also picked him at Kansas, which he won.
Shit, I have to bet Kyle Larson now.
You also picked him at Dover, which he finished second.
Okay, Kyle Larson top 3.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the only times you pick Larson this year. Indy, Kansas, and Dover. So your average
Plus 160 for a top 3 at DraftKings.
Yeah, your average finish when picking Larson is 1.3.
Damn. No, I wouldn't bet him at plus 160. He was 35% for a top 3 for me earlier this year. I don't think he tops that. He might come in around that, which would be plus 190, something like that. I need to pull out the calc. 1 divided by 0.3489, which is what he technically was. Plus 187. So I'd probably need at least that to bet him top 3. But I don't hate it.
Yep. And like some of these lines are, I think you also have to bake in or try to bake in the
I do love
how
bacon.
these guys are how these guys are probably going to qualify, and that's why I jumped. Like I said, that's why I jumped on the Reddick line early.
Yeah.
But that's also like if you like Eric Jones this week, as bad as he is at qualifying, I can only see his odds getting longer after qualifying.
Yeah.
That's why I'm definitely not like. If I may be interested in him top 10 this week, I wait till after qualifying. And if I miss out on it and he somehow gets a good qualifying effort, then I'll just miss out on it.
So be it. Yeah.
Whereas like another bet that I put in this week was Bubba Wallace top 10 plus 140 when that dropped on Bet 365 because I think he's going to have a very fast car and I think he's going to qualify really good. And yep. I think he's going to end up at minus odds for a top 10. So, Yep. Also, yeah, there's those aspects that you have to kind of remember when betting this week. But
I had Bubba Wallace 47.5% top 10 earlier this year. Let me again pull up the calc. 1 divided 0.475. If he plus 110, I don't see why he'd be necessarily any worse. I mean, he's right in that. Earlier this year, he was right in that Buescher, Gibbs, Chastain region, and that's probably where he's going to be. So I would expect plus 120, which he is right now at Bet 365, would probably end up value for me pre-practice and qualifying. Before I've run my model, like my very very final version of my model, right? So I have my normal version of it, but I'm trying to just squeeze every little bit of accuracy I can out of it.
Mm-hmm. Man, Logano minus 112 for a top 10. I don't hate that.
Here's the thing. I liked it a lot. I think in this race earlier, and then there must have been something in practice that caused me to not like it or something. Because I love
he really hasn't been that. He really hasn't been that fast the last 3 races here.
Let me look at practice. How did Joey Logano do in practice earlier this year? He was 6th in single lap speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in 5 lap. Yeah, and then he just tanks in 10 lap and then tanks even further in 15 lap. 20 lap, he improves, but only by a spot or 2, and the number of cars drops by like 5 or 6. He just had he just had terrible long run speed. He lost more than a second from his 5 lap to his 30 lap average, whereas Josh Berry lost. Well, okay, let's do 5 to 25. Joey Logano lost almost exactly a second from 5 lap to 25 lap average. Josh Berry only lost 0.4 of a second.
Right.
right? So I think that's what it was I didn't like Joey Logano's long run speed, which is why I was on him before practice and qualifying, but then after, I was like, yeah, maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, his last 3 races here at Darlington, driver ratings between 72 and 82. Like there's just that's not enough for me to bet him.
I agree.
I retract my, I like that minus 112. But all right, so I got Reddick, you got Larson in picks to win, and now we're moving over to 36 for 36. I somehow pull a top 10 finish out of Daniel Hemrick out of my ass at Daytona. I feel I hate that we're going against each other because my luck in this game is just stupid. This
it's
season
been really good.
It's just stupid, and I like I said, I've had the rest of this season pretty much penciled in of who I'm going to go with. Last week, I'm once again thankful that I said Corey LaJoie is probably going to be driving over his head at Daytona. I think he was. In addition to causing that one wreck, do you remember? Like, did you see the video of him? Like, almost just drifting into traffic while he was.
God, I thought he was going to Kevin LePage the field.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? Oh my God.
I saw it live and nobody, or I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people don't know what it means to Kevin LePage the field, unless you're like a really serially online or a longtime NASCAR fan. And I was like, oh my God, he almost Kevin LePage the field.
Excuse me. Yeah, I saw it back and I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I still have a Corey LaJoie. Got him penciled in for Atlanta next weekend. So 36 for 36. I am very tempted right now to go Tyler Reddick. And like right now I have a 74-point lead on you with 11 races to go. So I'm feeling good. I kind of want to like just, try to get max points out of Reddick this week. Like I said, I really like Reddick. But I'm going to go with, like I said, the guy earlier and we talked about it, Stewart Haas cars were strong here last time. I'm hoping they're strong again. I'm going Chase Briscoe. Firing off my Briscoe at Darlington. And hopefully he finished top 5 here last time. I'm hoping maybe I can get another top 5 finish out of him. Maybe a top 10. I'm not going to hope for a top 5. Just give me a top 10 out of Briscoe. I'll be happy. And I'm locked and loaded for these playoffs. I'm saving a lot of these strong guys for the playoffs. Feeling pretty good about this season. But going Briscoe at Darlington this weekend.
I like it. Can't complain with that one. So real quick before I get to mine, Bet365, Chris Buescher versus Joey Logano head-to-head. Chris Buescher minus 105, Joey Logano minus 125. Chris Buescher has dominated Joey Logano over the last 3 races at Darlington. He's only won 2 of the 3 head-to-heads, but that's because he had problems earlier this year. But he had a better average running position, a better driver rating, led 21 laps, Joey Logano 0. 12 fastest laps, Joey Logano 0. Buescher has absolutely dominated Logano over the last 3. Well, over the last 2. The first Darlington race in 2023, Logano had a better driver rating, better average running position, all that stuff. But Buescher finished better. But certainly the last 2, Buescher has dominated Logano here. So something to consider if you have interest in a head-to-head there. I don't really, but it's just something I noticed.
Yeah, I like that.
I think I do too, but especially with, Buescher needing to do everything he can. But is there a case for Buescher to just not wreck and hope we don't get a new winner and just stay ahead of Bubba in the points?
There's also that aspect of it.
So, one last thing to think about.
Yeah, I like it. I don't love it. I'm not running to bet that.
That's kind of where I was. Like, I like it, but I don't think I love it.
Mm-hmm. This week is just so weird because there's so many different things that could play out, with some of these guys, with the Bushers, the Bubbas, the Ty Gibbses, and obviously the Chastains. Like, Chastain could go kamikaze this race.
So, my 36 for 36, I have Josh Berry available.
I saw that.
What he did earlier this year. I have Kyle Larson available. Chase Elliott, I'm not really on for this one. No Gregson, don't hate here. Denny Hamlin, I love here. Ryan Blaney, I hate here. 16 is Allmendinger penciled in for another race. 23, that's Bubba Wallace. We know all the tension's going to be on him this week. 24, William Byron, I already bet him to win. And then Stenhouse and Suarez are probably out of contention for me here. Saving those probably for the super speedways. Maybe Stenhouse for Bristol. I like Josh Berry at Martinsville too, Love him in Martinsville. Noah Gragson, I like at the 1.5ers. Same with Bubba Wallace. Denny Hamlin is pretty much good everywhere. I do want to save my good cars for Phoenix with the attention that they'll get there. But I have Ryan Blaney, who could make it to Phoenix and is great there anyway. I have William Byron. I have Kyle Larson, who I probably will use at Homestead. So I think I'm going to go Denny Hamlin.
Going Hamlin?
With that penalty, it's a lot harder for him to make Phoenix.
Yep, that's a very good point.
Not impossible for sure, just harder. Now that said, I don't have many Phoenix contenders. I pretty much have Byron and Larson and Blaney outside of that. So gets a little hairy there. So I need to hope either. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, if you remember earlier this year, I kept saying I'm saving Briscoe for Phoenix.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Nope. I almost have either Byron or Blaney penciled in for Phoenix. So it just comes down to which of those two do I use at probably Las Vegas, I guess. Because Bubba will probably be Kansas. Bristol I need to think about. That could be Greg's. Well, I don't know. It's going to be tough. But I'm going to go Denny Hamlin at Darlington. Might regret not going Bubba, but I really like Bubba at Kansas.
You can't go wrong with picking a guy who has an average finish of 8.3 at this track and 4 wins.
Yeah,
Hamlin's
exactly.
so good here.
He is. So I'm going to go Denny Hamlin.
In this race last year, he swept the first 2 stages, led 177 laps. Hamlin's going to be tough this week.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Denny Hamlin. And that's my pick. I need Hamlin to sweep some stages and get a big win and Chase Briscoe to crash.
Yeah.
I need Chase Briscoe to crash lap 1 so I don't have to worry about him winning this race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll so points in 36 for 36 with 11 races to go. I'm at 624. Nick is at 550. So 74-point lead, quite the lead, but this is one of those weeks where, Briscoe goes and lays an egg and Hamlin does Hamlin things that we've seen him do at Darlington, and Nick, you'd be right back in this. So
yeah, I need a big swing.
Yep. And it's definitely not impossible. We've seen big swings happen before. I mean, you look at Gateway this year. I got 1 point out of Josh Berry. You got 39 out of Logano. So could easily see that happen. Not easily, but it's certainly plausible that it could happen.
Yeah, the minimum number of points in a race this year was 1, which was Josh Berry Gateway for you. The maximum was 57, which I did twice with Keselowski at Darlington and Christopher Bell at New Hampshire. So if I can get 57 from Denny Hamlin and you can get 1, it's 56 points swing in my favor, and suddenly I'm only 18 back.
Yeah, you look at the last Darlington race, I had the 77 of Hocevar, and you had Keselowski, and huge 46-point advantage week for you that week. So,
yeah. Not over, but I need to start clawing back points fast.
Yep. Maybe it'll be this weekend. I think it will. I think you're gonna cut the lead here quite a bit. And then we got Atlanta next weekend. We still got Talladega. This is nowhere near over. I agree with you. This is wide open.
Not over.
But we will see everybody or talk to everybody next week when we preview Atlanta and get the playoff field set and these final 16 drivers solidified. Good luck to everybody this weekend betting on Darlington, playing fantasy on Darlington. Like we said, make sure you really analyze practice speeds and tire fall off this week. That's going to be the biggest thing for the Southern 500. But enjoy the race. Enjoy what is it? Labor Day? Is this Labor Day weekend? The holiday?
Yep.
Enjoy your Monday off, and we'll be back next week to talk about Atlanta and preview the playoffs. There we go. All right. Good luck, everybody. See ya.